Welcome to a Field of 68 breaking news report. Good morning, everybody. I'm John Fanta. Jeff Goodman joins us. Rob Dauster joins us, and we have a massive piece of news about to break. Top prospect in the class of 2025, and perhaps we'll get to it here. The top prospect in all of basketball, could he be? AJ Dybantsa is about to announce his college commitment. Jeff Goodman, let's go right to you. What this is down to, what your thought process is as AJ is about to make this big decision known.
Yeah, the Brockton, Massachusetts native, who's now at Utah Prep, and that's the connection really to BYU a little bit. They've been recruiting him. They've been the leader for months now. They've got a lot of financial resources. And he's talented, man. He is super talented. 6'9". He's that new age versatile forward that everybody wants right now. And I'm not going to say he's Jason Tatum. He's actually more athletic than Tatum. Not the shooter, not the overall, I think, player that Jason Tatum is, but he's that type of wing, right? He's an electric, versatile wing that arguably is the number one player in the country right now. And BYU and Alabama, those are the two favorites for him right now. According to my sources, BYU is the heavy favorite.
Rob, what do you make of this kid?
Extremely talented, right? Like, I think you look at him and you see, like Goodman said, the big wing initiators that are all the rage in the NBA right now. He said Jason Tatum. The guy that I see when I watch him play is Paul George. I think that is where his ceiling is as a player if it all comes together for AJ. And look, I don't love making those comparisons to high school kids because that puts a lot of pressure on a kid that's still 18 years old and a senior in high school to live up to a level of expectation that probably isn't fair. Like, that's a top 5% outcome for him in terms of it all, if it all comes together. But that is what he can be if everything works out for him. Like, when you watch him play at the high school level, that is what he looks like. Now, I think the thing that makes him so special to me is his ability to kind of get where he wants to go and then raise up and elevate over you and shoot. He's a scorer, right? This isn't a guy that's going to come in here. It's not like Cooper Flagg where we're talking about, he impacts the game this way, he impacts the game that way. It's his defense, it's the passing, it's the ball knowledge, it's all of this other stuff, right? Like, AJ's got some of that in him, but the reason what makes him so good and the reason why he's a top prospect and the guy that's going to be the favorite to be the number one pick in the 2026 NBA draft is because he can go out there and get you buckets.
Yeah, spending some time around him at the Nike Hoop Summit out in Oregon this past May. He was just late April, rather. He was such a leader in practice with kids that he was familiar with to a degree, but he had never really played on the same team with a variety of these kids. And this was an event, Jeff, that featured the likes of Cooper Flagg, VJ Edgecombe. You go right down the list, some of the top prospects in this year's freshman class. And AJ was really one of the guys that was most vocal in the practice. Peach Jam as well. His leadership is on display. Like, for a guy that is still going, not another year until he's in college as a freshman, and was playing above his level here the last year and change. It's really impressive to see his maturation and how much he's just beyond his years in presence. Like, when AJ Dybantsa is in the gym or in a room talking.
Yeah, so I remember 2 years ago seeing him. People had told me at that point, he had just finished, I think, his freshman year at Rivers School right around Boston. And people told me I got to go watch him play at Peach Jam. And I watched him, and you could see the upside. But at that point, it was upside. He wasn't doing a whole lot at that point. He was playing up a year. And then 2 years ago, you go to the Peach Jam, and it was like, holy shit, did this kid make a jump. He led the Peach Jam in scoring. Peach Jam, for those that don't know, is the best summer event, the best AAU event on the planet. And he led the whole thing in scoring. It was all about production. And that's when you start to realize, man, this kid's got something. Because, again, sometimes it's about that potential. And everybody talks about the potential instead of the production. This kid's got both. That's the beauty of AJ Dybantsa. And as you said, Fanta, he's got that personality as well. He's got that confidence about him as well. He's got the smile. He's got the whole package. The only thing I want to see, and it's funny, I saw it more in Indy this past April, was could refs take him out of the game a little bit? And he's still got some maturing to go, but most kids do at this point, other than the boozers. They're just ridiculously mature, and all they do is win. But AJ Dybanta has the whole package, and that's why, again, he's the number one player in the class due to production and potential. He's got both.
Yeah,
all right,
he's really – go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, give me your pick, Goodman. You can have one of these guys to build an NBA franchise around.
Don't
you can
do
have Cooper
this.
Flagg.
Don't do it.
You can have AJ. You can have Cam Boozer. You got to take one of those three. You have the number one pick right now. You got to take one of those three. Who is it?
Boy. I mean, Boozer, we know he's just going to be solid, period. He's just going to be solid. Cooper Flagg, I don't think is a number one guy on an NBA team. I don't think you can build your franchise around Cooper Flagg. I think he needs, another guy with him that's a superstar. AJ, to me, I worry about. I think he's got probably the lowest floor of all those guys, but by far the highest ceiling. So I'm going to probably say I can't not take a shot on AJ and hope I get maybe even the better version of Paul George. Maybe the healthier version of Paul George, the mentally tougher version of Paul George. But again, like there's not much he can't do. He's a streaky shooter. What?
You just called Paul George soft. We're over here talking about AJ Dybantsa's commitment, and Paul George just catches a stray.
Okay, well,
what did he ever do to you?
Nothing. I'm just saying.
What's Paul George won? Yeah, I mean that
too.
Hey, look, I think it's interesting. This is an interesting debate because Cooper Flagg is averaging 17, 9, and close to 4 assists per game at Duke right now.
That's awesome.
But he's shooting 20% from three. And when he has put the ball on the floor in late game situations, we've already seen what coaches have done to that. They've read it and they've said primary ball handler.
That's not his fault that he doesn't have a point guard to take pressure off him. That's not his fault. So they're putting him in a situation that I don't think he's yet fully comfortable at in college. I think he was comfortable in that in AAU in high school. There's a big difference from, again, Montverde Academy and Maine Select to Duke.
I think where I was going to finish the point, Jeff, was the fact that you're saying Dybantsa in this argument is a testament to AJ because of what people are still watching from Cooper just 5 weeks into his college career, like what he is doing. And a couple of people have texted, that have been closer to him in Maine, and Andy Bedard, a guy who spent a lot of time with him, is like, look, you haven't even seen the best from Cooper Flagg yet. Like, he's just getting started here in college. We're in for even more. So I think that's the ultimate compliment to an AJ, that we're watching still what we're watching from Cooper Flagg, who would be in the top 3 or 4 for National Player of the Year right now. Like, after Cam Jones and Janai Broome, it's not like there's a clear-cut 3. And if there were, I'd give an argument that it's Cooper Flagg. That speaks to AJ's upside, AJ's total game. I mean, 6'9" with a wingspan over 7 feet, the ability to create his own shots, hit the mid-range jumper. Like, Rob, that's what was on display. And in this modern day of basketball, his size, the ability to put the ball on the floor, create his own shots, and make those shots, that's what stands out about AJ Dybantsa. He knows how to get to his spots, and he rises over you, like a young Durant, and the ability to rise over a defender and knock down the shot off the dribble.
Yeah, I mean, look, you watch the Celtics play right now, right? And what do? They basically give the ball to Jason Tatum, or they give the ball to Jaylen Brown, and they put them in ball screens, and they try to find matchups where we could just let those guys go one-on-one and create a shot out of isolation, because they basically are saying, we have 2 guys that you are not able to stop offensively, right? And if you think about AJ Dybantsa at the NBA level, like, that is kind of what you would want him to be able to do, because he is 6'9", because he could play off the bounce, because of his ability to kind of get where he wants to get his shot from and be able to elevate over you. As you see him walking onto the first take set right now. He's going to get ready to commit. AJ Dybanta, right? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Did you
Dybanta?
have to go there? Did you?
You expect Molly. Listen,
give Molly a
don't
break.
blame it on
it's
Molly.
A hard name.
They shouldn't be doing this anyway. I mean, the only reason they're doing it on first take is because Ace wanted it on first take. It should have been on Van Pelt. It should have been on somebody who actually knows.
Should have been on the field of 68 is what it should have been. Come on, Goodman. It should have been on the field of 68.
Very true. Very true.
This is me getting wait. Okay, this is what it looks like for me to get out of the shot so that if anybody aggregates this and sends this out to Bristol, they don't know who the man in the green sweater is in the middle. Thank you.
Anna just wants to make sure he can be hired by ESPN at some point in the future. Look at him. He's jumping back out. It's fine, Fanta. Fine. You don't have to take any strays. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
Got it. Perfect.
I'm done. Perfect. I'm done with my rant.
Okay. You're finished.
Part one of my rant's over.
Right. You did an interview with AJ. You and Rob did. And
I went to his house in Brockton. I went to his house in Brockton a couple of years ago. Went down there.
What was that visit like? What was that visit like? What kind of a family? I mean, again, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, Ace is a great dude, and he's kept everything in house. And one of the things Ace has done that's not completely unique, but rare, is he really kept AJ away from the college coaches. He did, and he'll say this, like AJ didn't talk to the college coaches until the very end here of the process. Ace handled everything. He also didn't hire an agent. He might have lately, but as of a couple months ago, he had not hired an agent and was keeping everything in house. And again, it might cost them a little bit of money at the end of the day, but he wanted to control things and make sure his son was protected. And I don't blame him on one hand, because ultimately, this is your kid and there's a lot of people going after him and this and that. But I think, again, he's done it a little bit differently than most right now. And, this is a kid that's going to make a lot of money wherever he chooses to go here. And the number I put out there, and it wasn't a report months ago. It was not a report. It was kind of what I had heard that day by somebody else. The number I think I put out was like 7 million. Obviously, this whole system is going to change with revenue sharing coming up soon. But I think the more accurate number that AJ demands, and we'll get into this after he chooses wherever he's going to go, but I think a more accurate number of what he's going to make revenue-wise from everything, not just BYU, but in revenue sharing, but the collective, but these big time in the big time boosters, and also deals he's already got with Nike, Red Bull. He'll have a deal with trading cards. I think you're looking at a number in the $5 million range. That's what you can expect AJ Dybantsa to make next season while playing at BYU.
It's not bad for 1 year, Fanta.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Fanta's muted.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. I mean, that's amazing on many levels, but he's got an incredible skill set. And when there are some players making $2+ million this year in college basketball, and many of them are not, well, some of them are not worth that kind of money. Let's face it. AJ Dybantsa can be worth $5 million. I guess, Rob, I'll be curious to see wherever he lands, wherever he ends up here, what kind of a college player AJ Dybantsa is. As First Take has just come back from break, it's down to Alabama, BYU, North Carolina, and they just showed the ESPN's high school basketball recruiting rankings. Darren Peterson's number 2 off to Kansas, Cameron Boozer here to Duke, and Chris Senek Jr. off to Houston. Nate Ahmed.
All right, here's one for you. Here's one for you, Fanta.
Yep.
Real quick, while we wait for this actual commitment to come, Goodman, would you take next year for a 1 year situation? Would you take Darren Peterson or AJ Dybantsa?
Darren Peterson. I would take Darren Peterson next year. I just think first of all, he's a point guard. He's a point guard. I think he makes people better. I think he's a better, consistent defender. I just know what I'm going to get out of Darren Peterson. I think I know what I'm going to get every game. I don't know that with AJ. I also think, and I want to talk about this after he makes his commitment, guys, is, again, one guy making all this money, what does it do to the rest of your team? And that goes for Darren Peterson too, frankly. Like, he's going to make a high percentage of Kansas's revenue share.
Is he jumping out of a plane?
Huh? What are you talking about?
It's a hype video. The hats are being delivered. He now is on First Take. He was just asked where he's heading. Rob, I think your feed's behind mine.
It's definitely way behind yours.
I got 2 sisters at home. My mom at home. So shout out, Mom. Love you.
Shouted out his mother just now and his 2 sisters. His dad is on set.
He's got the Red Bull hat.
Yeah. You got AJ Dybanta on set too. God,
this is really cool.
Is he coming on?
AJ Dybantsa has announced that he is heading to BYU. He is off to BYU to play for Coach Kevin Young and the Cougars. A massive moment for Brigham Young University, as large of a recruiting moment in the history of BYU basketball, Jeff Goodman.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jimmer captivated the nation years ago, coming out of, I think, Glen Falls, New York. But he didn't come in with the hype of this kid. And Igor Demin is there now, and he's going to be probably a top 5 pick. But this kid is going to give Kevin Young juice, and that program juice that they've never had before going into the year. We'll see what he does. Again, Jimmer produced. We'll see how good this team is around him, but this is a absolutely mammoth day for BYU basketball.
Yeah, it's a statement, right? Like, when they were able to go out and get some of the foreign kids that they brought in, specifically Igor, I think a lot of us saw it and were like, oh, okay, and then you hear about how BYU's in the mix with AJ Dybanta, and I think everybody was just kind of like, well, okay, but like, do they actually have a chance of getting this kid? Like, is this real? And to see him make the selection it's one, it's a little bit sobering, but 2, I think it kind of shows you where we are right now in the world of college athletics, right? Money is the best recruiter. It doesn't matter who you got. I mean, look at guys like Brandon Miller and what they're doing in the NBA now, and someone like a Herb Jones and the success that he's having in the NBA right now. And that's who AJ picked BYU over. An Alabama team that entered this season ranked number 1 in the country, that went to the Final Four last year, and that has sent players exactly like him to the NBA before, right? In recent history, Brandon Miller was the number 2 pick. And now BYU, who was a WCC program, what was it, 18 months ago, 24 months ago, is now out recruiting Nate Oates, out recruiting those guys simply because they're able to drop this. And I don't have a problem with it. I'll be honest. I don't care. Like, good for them. Like, go out. Yeah, if you can go out and go ahead.
Yes, I think obviously money was a factor here, but I also think Kevin Young is a factor here, okay? A guy that was offered the Brooklyn Nets head coaching job and turned it down. He's been in the NBA for years. I think that's a major selling point that we're overlooking in all this. A guy that can sell to Ace and AJ, hey, I've been in there in the NBA. Look at the offensive system that I run. And again, the key to me is going to be, are you going to have good enough players around you to be able to win at a high level? That's where, to me, I thought Alabama would have a fighting chance. And I think they did, because, again, you can sell not only the system that Nate Oates runs, but also the fact that you're probably going to have a little more talent around you. And the other thing was Preston Murphy, actually, the assistant at Alabama, coached AJ when he was younger. So this is not a surprise. But again, if you had told anybody this, when Kevin Young got hired at BYU, there were a lot of naysayers, myself included. You know, the former NBA guys haven't done well in college. He's different. He hasn't made, $100 million. But I didn't know how it would work. But you've got a lot of money in that community that wants to see BYU succeed, and they have ponied up.
Mm-hmm. And it all began with Andy Enfield heading to the Ponies of SMU, and then Eric Musselman heading to the Trojans. of USC. And then John Calipari saying, you know what, I'll take the Tyson chicken money and I'll go down to Arkansas. And Mark Pope goes to Kentucky. And there's questions around him. How's he doing right now? Better than pretty much everybody else in college
Everybody's
basketball.
happy. Hey, everybody's happy but the people down in Fayetteville today of those changes.
And tonight, some of those people are up in New York City for, I don't want to say is a must-win game, but it feels like a game Arkansas really needs to win when they go up against a Michigan team that's off to a great start under another first-year head coach who's enjoying himself more than the Arkansas first-year head coach, Dusty May, and his Michigan Wolverines. By the way, just on First Take, just now, Stephen A. said to AJ Dybantsa that he thought AJ would pick North Carolina for the magnitude of the North Carolina-Duke rivalry. AJ responded, hey, Stephen A., us at BYU, we'll play Duke next season if they're up for it. So John Shire, a message was just sent from AJ Dybantsa on national TV because his BYU Cougars want to play the Boozers. How about that? Let's make that happen, Rob. Let's make a Dybantsa Boozers game, BYU Duke happen. Come on.
I would love that because there already is a little bit of rivalry between them from the high school ranks. Like AJ's never the thing about the Boozers is they've won like everything at every level. Yeah, everything at every level. Can we talk about AJ's chain for a second? Do you see that? Do you see that chain he's got on? How much do you think that pendant costs? look at that thing.
Well, again, I mean, he's already making money, guys, from Nike and Red Bull. We saw the hat when he came on. Like, he's making real money already as a high schooler. For those people that don't know, that's allowed now in most states. Go ahead, Fanta.
So he was just asked where he'd want to play in the NBA. This is kind of what makes him different. And he said Spurs or Magic. And Stephen A. looks at him and goes, Spurs or Magic? Like, very upset because he wants him on the Knicks or the Lakers. He wants him on a marquee brand. And AJ said, you want to see me play with Wemby? You know, I want to play with him, or I want to play with Orlando, who guards. Like, that's the thing, Jeff. He's a unique kid in the sense of, like, look, he just picked BYU. He thinks about things very differently. He wants to make his mark in a unique way.
What's interesting is that, again, in a lot of ways, his father Ace controls the situation. But then when you talk to AJ, he's so smart and well-spoken and mature for his age and all this. And it's like, really, this is a kid who's been shielded? He has, but he hasn't. I think Ace has taught him so well. And again, like, he doesn't stifle him. He just protects them. And so far it's worked. Again, I want to see how good AJ is in college. That's my biggest thing.
I will say this, Goodman. Yeah, I will say this. I think he's going to put up huge numbers in college, right? Like, I think if you look back to kind of like the Michael Beasley, Kevin Durant, like the year that they were there, like, I'm not saying that he's going to be as good as those guys long-term. I would not be shocked if he had a season. Like, if he averaged 23 points per game next year for BYU, I would not be surprised at all. 2, I think part of the reason why he is so valuable to a company like Red Bull or to a company like Nike and some of the sponsorships he's going to get is, like, that kid knows how to turn on the charm when the cameras are on. Like, he understands the value of, like, I think that's the one thing Ace has done a really good job of is teaching him to understand, like, okay, when those cameras are on, that matters just as much as what you do on a basketball court when it comes to the finances. And, you know, I don't begrudge. Who's that? Fanta. Who's calling me? Is that Ace? Stephen A. Is Molly Kieran calling to yell at you that I made fun of her for pronouncing Dybantsa?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Yes.
No, go ahead.
By the way, the last question that they asked AJ's father, Jeff, was where could you see him playing in the NBA? You want to see the Kevin Young, the linkage here. He goes, I really would like him to play for the Phoenix Suns.
This is weird.
I mean, it's just interesting because Kevin came from Phoenix.
I know, but still, like you're not going to say he won't say the Celtics because they already have Tatum and Jaylen Brown there. But
That's
to
such
me,
a weird line of
again,
questioning. Like, hold on, can we talk about that for a second?
terrible.
That's such a weird line of
Makes no
questioning. Like,
sense.
that's why.
Who cares? Who
Yeah.
cares?
No,
He's not going to control it. It doesn't matter. He's not going to control where he gets picked.
Yeah, they didn't ask
So
you one thing about.
Here's the natural question, though. Like the question now becomes that the common person's wondering. You look at BYU this year, and they're off to a 6-2 start. They can absolutely be a tournament team in the deep Big 12 and probably should be with.
They got blown out by your Providence Friars, Fanta. They got blown out by your Providence Friars.
Okay, well, first off, they're I don't know where I think they're yours or they're Rob's. I don't know who's claiming them there. The Friars are
Providence.
Yeah, the Friars are an underdog. By the way, Dagan Hughes, we'll get out of here in 3 minutes, promise. I think the question then becomes, look, road game at PC. You hope that's probably a quadrant 1 loss, and they have so many opportunities in the Big 12, and Provo's a tough place to play. But we don't know exactly what the roster will look like next year because of what they could lose some of the NBA draft. Demon obviously on that radar, but I guess the question becomes, Jeff, is can Kevin Young, do you buy the idea that roster around him, Richie Saunders presumably back, is good enough to be a top 15, top 20 team in the sport next year? Is that what we're talking about here? Or is this where the decision has its drawbacks because it might not mean that you're having an amazing college year?
Could he be, and I'm not saying he's going to be, could he be Markelle Fultz or Ben Simmons next year?
Simmons.
Could he be the star of a team that is nationally irrelevant because they don't have enough around him? Now, I'll say this. Kevin Young is a better coach than Lorenzo Romar was at that point in his career and Johnny Jones was at LSU. I think that's already the case due to talking to enough people in the NBA. But you've got to surround him with the right pieces, right? I mean, anybody who's going there next year is going to understand that it's AJ's show next year. He's going to get, 50% of the shots, more than 50% of the money. Well, maybe not more, but somewhere around there, I would think, of the revenue sharing money. So they got to go in knowing what they are, which is they're kind of role guys and pieces. And the question is AJ going to be efficient enough? Is he going to be efficient enough and a good enough leader to take this BYU team next year into the NCAA tournament and make them nationally relevant, other than us looking at him as the number 1 pick potentially?
Yeah, I hope that this goes better than the way it's going right now. Look, Rutgers, for example, right? Rutgers is 5-4 in the season. They just lost their opener in the Big Ten. Dylan Harper's been great, but it's not a great fit with everything else around it. G.G. Jackson at South Carolina is the one that stands out to me, right? But at the same time, I would make the argument that when you know that you have this commitment in November or in December, I guess now, right? You have it early enough where now you got this staff that can go out there and they can evaluate players throughout the whole season that they want to try to find in the portal, right? You can go out and say
AJ can recruit.
Yes.
AJ can recruit too.
And it's not just it's saying look, every NBA scout in the world is going to be here watching AJ. He's going to be the most evaluated player in college basketball next year. If you want someone to catch your eye, come here and do a job. What you could tell these kids, right? And I can promise you that they are sitting there. They are watching games on Synergy. They have a list of however many players. They are evaluating them because every single team is doing it, trying to say, these are the upperclassmen we want to try to get from the mid-major level in the portal. And what the selling point is, every NBA scout's going to be watching. You want to make it to the league? You want to play professionally? Come over here and show people that you could do a job playing a role next to a star like AJ Dybantsa, who will be a star that is at the level of the NBA guys that you see. That's the selling point. And if you can get the right guys and make the right evaluations, there's no reason you can't put together a team that is good enough around them. The big question for me is just going to be look, if he gets there and he shoots 31% from 3 and he's shooting 39% from the floor and he's averaging 22, but it takes him 23 shots to get there, and it's a lot of inefficient mid-range pull-ups, it doesn't matter what your supporting cast is going to be. Now, if he's averaging 23 a game, and he's shooting.
It does
38%
matter.
from three.
I hear you. It doesn't matter, but those numbers are going to be better. He's going to be more efficient with good players that move the ball that get him open shots rather than, and we've seen it, Rob. We've seen it on the circuit, him taking a lot of contested step backs, shots that he shouldn't have
that's
to
my
take.
That's my point. That is my point. Like, you could have the best supporting cast in the world. If he decides, like, I'm just going one-on-one every possession and I'm going to show you I can beat Jason Tatum by hitting these 18-foot turnarounds, like, you ain't going to win that way. It doesn't matter how good you are. So that's my biggest question. I think they'll find a way to be able to figure that out. I would bet on it happening. And, like, I would pencil BYU in as like a floor, get to the tournament, win a game kind of a team, because that's what Kevin Durant was the year that he was there. That's what Beasley was the year that he was there. And that's kind of what I think the more apt comparison is than a G.G. Jackson or a Dylan Harper, if that makes sense.
All right, last one. Goodman, when was the last time you were in Provo?
Last year.
Jimmer. Oh, last year.
No, you were there last year. Yeah.
Right. I was there for practice last year. Ended up going to chose a Utah State game because I had never been to Logan.
That's right.
Over
That's
BYU.
right. You had post game. Yeah, I remember that.
The last game, I will tell you this, was I went to both Jimmer home and away when Jimmer Kawhi, and my God, that was, I'm telling you, those two venues, those two games might have been top 10 for me of all time in 25 years, whatever I've been doing this. So I hope it's like that next year in Provo. I really do. And it's going to be interesting, too, to see the dynamic of Kevin Young and how he coaches AJ Dybantsa. We haven't talked about that part at all, and we won't now because Dagan Hughes needs lunch. But I do think that's going to be a very, very interesting dynamic between coach and star player.
It's nap time for producer Dagan.
All right. That's After Dark is live tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Mike Latula, Tyler Hansborough. I'm going to ask Tyler what the heck he thinks of AJ Dybantsa going to BYU over his North Carolina Tar Heels.
Break down some film. Tyler's got how many hours to break down some film of AJ Dybantsa?
We'll talk about Arkansas and Michigan. We'll recap the Big East opener from Chicago between Providence and is this actually a new era for DePaul? And a big night in the Big Ten, a couple of big games, Illinois, Wisconsin, and much more. But AJ Dybantsa, a last inside college hoop scoop for you all. Big 12 now will next year have quite a fascinating set of media partners, like more than any other league with all the TV partners. The last thing I'll say is this, that TV draft of who's getting what games and whether you're picking Kansas or whether you want, Dybantsa on your network, it's going to be fascinating to see and who capitalizes on the Dybantsa to BYU movement and what games are created as a result. We want BYU Duke. Let it be heard around the country. We want Boozers versus Dybantsa. Make it happen, Kevin Young and John
Don't
Shire.
duck the smoke, Shire. Don't duck the smoke.
Keep it locked to Field of 68 all day long. We'll have TikToks, IG Reels. We're all over platforms breaking this commitment down and breaking down the news of the day in college basketball. We'll see you less than 12 hours from now on After.